Devin, do you see me okay? I don't see me on the screen at all.
Welcome. I'm Ricky Bevington, senior anchor and correspondent for Georgia Public Broadcasting and local host for NPR's All Things Considered. You are watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series. This is the primary election debate for Republican candidates in Congressional District 9. In order to ensure everyone's safety, of course, this debate looks a lot different from others that you've watched. Candidates are participating from their homes, and I am participating from my home. The Atlanta Press Club gives a special thank you to broadcast partner Georgia Public Broadcasting for helping to organize the video debates. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Michael Bogus describes himself as a father, a husband, a tax-paying citizen, and a devout constitutionalist. Paul Brown was a commander of the U.S. Army Reserves and a former U.S. Congressman for Georgia's 10th Congressional District. Andrew Clyde served in the U.S. Army. He later founded his own small firearms business. Matt Gertler is a member of the Georgia House of Representatives for District 8. He also builds homes. Maria Strickland served in law enforcement for 26 years. Maria is unable to join us for today's debate. Kevin Tanner is a businessman who owns a security company and runs a real estate business. Ethan Underwood is a lawyer and former chair of the Forsyth County Republican Party and second vice chair for the 9th Congressional District Republican Party. Kelly Weeks is the founder of a gun store with her husband. And John Wilkinson is a member of Georgia's State Senate representing District 50. Thanks to all of you for being here. I am also joined by Dave Williams, who is Bureau Chief for Capitol Beat News Service. Dave, thanks to you for joining me as we talk to these candidates today. Let's get started. Before each round, I will explain to everybody exactly what all the rules are. And please note, candidates will have 60 seconds for this round to answer their questions and 30 seconds to respond to rebuttal. So remember, 60 and 30. They will be muted when it is not their turn to speak, and they will be muted if they go over their allotted time to respond. For the full set of rules, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website at atlantapressclub.org. It's, of course, going to be especially challenging to time everybody remotely. So thanks to all of you for following my cues. I will tell you when it's time. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question. Dave, you get the first question to Kevin Tanner.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Tanner.
Good afternoon.
This race has a mix of candidates who have experience in local and state government and those who have never run for public office. Now, you've served as the county manager and are now a member of the Georgia House of Representatives. Does that experience make you a better candidate? And if so, why?
Well, I really appreciate that question. I think it absolutely does. Having spent 20 years running a law enforcement agency and managing a large number of employees there, having been a county manager and understanding how to manage local government through a significant downturn without ever having to raise taxes, and then serving in the Georgia House, where I also served as a farmer with a poultry farm, land we farmed for over 160 years. I think I have the most diverse background in this race, and I'm prepared to go in day one and send some effective leadership to Washington. Not just more talking, but someone that actually knows how to get things done. And I think my diverse background I have in this race will bring that to the table.
Thank you. I will now ask a question to Paul Brown. Some 400 workers, Mr. Brown, at a poultry plant in Cornelia, which is in the 9th District, have tested positive for COVID-19. There have been outbreaks at plants, in other plants in North Georgia, and all of this despite really rigorous health and sanitation procedures inside plants. This, of course, is an issue, as we all know from reading the news across the country. Do you think that Georgia's poultry industry needs to do more to keep workers from getting infected by coronavirus right now?
Well, coronavirus is certainly a big issue, and frankly, it is a major issue with a small part of our population. And it is a small issue for the major part of our population, and those who are exposed need to, or have a potential exposure, need to do the common sense things to keep themselves healthy and safe. We've got to get our economy going. We've got to start our people working again. We've got to save our small businesses. In 2020, hindsight is perfect, but we already know that the problem is the projections are just not as bad as what the federal government has given us. And so we've got to get our economy going. And I think that's the most important thing.
Do you think that health and sanitation restrictions need to be increased inside Georgia poultry plants, Mr. Brown?
I think health and safety issues are always important in every business and restaurant and everywhere. So we've just got to use some common sense. There's not enough common sense there. We've got to do all that we can to try to make ourselves safe. But we need to have individual responsibility and accountability. So I believe that people should do what's necessary to keep themselves from getting the coronavirus or flu or any other illness for that matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Dave, please ask a question to Andrew Clyde.
All right, Mr. Clyde, you have cited as a key reason that you're running for Congress a dispute a few years ago with the IRS, which tried to seize hundreds of thousands of dollars from your business. And later on, you played a role in legislation addressing civil forfeiture, which President Trump signed last year. What was it about going through that episode that convinced you to enter this race?
Well, I think the first thing is that it showed me that we are not running our government. Our government is running us. When a federal agency can come in and seize basically everything that you've got, all of your assets, and take them away from you, and try and shut you down, that's wrong. Basically, when they do that, they're penalizing you first, and they're declaring you guilty, and then having you prove that you're innocent. And that's wrong. That's not the way our country works. That's not liberty. That is not constitutional. When the IRS took $940,000 from me, that was a serious blow to me and my business. And so I fought them with everything I could, and we won. We won in court. We won through the legislature, as you mentioned, and President Trump signed that bill into law, the Clyde-Hirsch-Sowers Respect Act. And it took a big chunk out of the ability of the federal agencies to enforce civil asset forfeiture.
Thank you. Ethan Underwood, my question to you is, you state that you want to, quote, fight socialized medicine. What specific healthcare proposals would you bring were you elected, if you were elected to Congress?
Well, I'll start off and tell you that I have a daughter who has Down syndrome. And when she was born, within 3 months, we were having to go through open heart surgery. 9 months after that, she ended up having to have chemotherapy. Thank God she's a cancer survivor for 15 years. But had we had a socialized medical system like they have in Canada, she would never have gotten the treatment that she needed in time. Private industry, private business, private health care provides us at the highest level of health care of anywhere in the country. If you see Canadians trying to get in here to have elective surgery, their government won't let them have. So it's important that we keep a private healthcare system. What we need to do is decouple our healthcare system from our employers. We've got to make our healthcare mobile so that when people change from job to job, that's just how the economy works now. People don't stay in particular jobs for 20 or 30 years. We have to make them the policy be mobile with them. We have to make sure that we can buy healthcare across state lines, and we need to be encouraging healthy decisions and health savings accounts.
Thank you for your question. Dave, please ask a question to John Wilkinson.
Senator Wilkinson, you are currently carrying in the state Senate a bill that the House passed last year that's entitled the Georgia Right to Farm Act. But opponents say this bill would make it harder for owners of existing farm properties to sue large agricultural polluters that move into their neighborhoods, like hog farms or chicken houses. Why do you support that bill? Think it's a good idea for agribusiness?
Well, of course, Georgia is a right to farm state already. We have a right to farm act that's in place, but there has been some question as to the clarity of the way the legislation is written at the present time. The major thing that this bill does, HB 545, as you've referenced, is give clarity. So it's not open to the interpretation of the judicial system. And as it it is laid out in the legislation itself, and it is legislated by the legislative branch instead of the judicial branch putting their interpretation. I think it's a good piece of legislation. It has passed through the Agriculture Committee in the Senate, which I chair. I heard the bill. It has passed through the Rules Committee, and now it has come to the floor of the Senate for a vote. We have 11 days of the session left, and I look forward to passing the legislation.
Let me ask you a quick follow on that. The bill has been, the last time we checked, right before the legislature was suspended, the bill was tabled by the Senate. What's your take on the ability to get a vote on that and get that passed when you get back?
Well, we think this is a good bill, not just for the farmers of Georgia, but for the citizens of Georgia. I think the coronavirus outbreak has shown us the importance of having Georgia-grown products. I think this will be a big step toward doing that. We have 11 days, and I'm very confident we can take it off the table and pass it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will ask a question to Michael Bogus. As I told you before this debate started, I've been watching some of your Facebook videos, and you were recently posting, as recently as I think Thursday, we were talking about gun permits, and you're against gun permits. So my question is, are you suggest that you made a proposal about states collaborating to, rather than have gun permits, instead people would use their driver's licenses? Are you suggesting that anyone with a driver's license, this would include felons, people with a history of domestic violence, people with mental illness, should be able to use their driver's license to get a gun?
No, because you're still going to have a federal background check whenever you buy your gun. So they're still going to have to go through the same process. It's just you're eliminating a permit where your rights don't stop at a line. They don't stop at a line. You can go anywhere across the country. We shouldn't be allowed to be told where we can and can't go with our firearms. I travel everywhere. Guess what travels with me? My firearm. So, yeah, there's still going to be background checks. I mean, there has to be, because you don't want every idiot with a gun.
So it's really about crossing state lines. But don't you think states should be able to decide what's right for their states?
Well, if they were able to decide what was right for their states, they wouldn't have protesters bitching every day.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. And Dave, you have the last question for Matt Gertler.
Well, Representative Gertler, the media covers the state capitol has nicknamed you Dr. No for the number of no votes that you cast on the House floor. And that's something, of course, that you mentioned on your website. So I assume that you're trying to send a message by opposing that many bills on the House floor. What is that message?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I was deemed that Mr. No, Dr. No, because I do vote no more than any other legislator. But it comes to, there's always a point to it, and it has to do with the constitutionality of the bills, if it increases the size, the scope of the intrusiveness of government, and could you read the bill? That high criteria when it comes to the voting is why I vote no, because government on a federal and a state level has been growing and growing and growing. It's a natural proclivity of government to grow unless people and good conservatives stand up and draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough. And so in our campaign here, I earned that title as Georgia's most conservative representative by making those hard stands, by standing up to the establishment, and actually representing true Republican principles. Individual liberty, free markets, right to defend yourself, upholding the Constitution is one of my highest priorities. I take my oath very seriously. That's why I was deemed Mr. No or Dr. No. But if you read the bills, about 65% of them have nothing to do with the proper role of government. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
And I will correct myself. Kelly Weeks, you have the last question from me for this round, and then we'll move on to the next round. You serve as a public advocate for Tourette syndrome. So first, I will ask you to just explain for the rest of us what that is briefly. And then I'll ask, if you're elected to Congress, would you support the Americans with Disabilities Act? And if so, in what ways?
But first of all, Tourette syndrome is a neurological disorder that causes motor tics, which are, you can have motor and vocal tics. I have more motor tics, so if you watch me, I'll do my eyes and squinch my nose and stuff like that. Both our kids have Tourette syndrome, and back in, I guess it was about 2007, I was on the board for the Tourette Syndrome Foundation of Georgia, and we formed a camp called Camp Twitch and Shout, and it hosts about 150 kids every year. I've been a big advocate for them, and I spent all my kids' youth going to schools and talking to them about Tourette's and letting people know what was going on so they would understand what my children were going through and understand how to help them and know that they weren't just doing some weird things. So as far as the Americans with Disabilities Act, I do support that. I think that people should have a chance to go into works and prove themselves and get jobs that maybe that they wouldn't have been able to get to before. I think they need to advocate there to help bring people up that do have some, some people have some issues.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That concludes the first portion of this debate. Thanks to everybody. We're doing great. We're good on time. Everybody's audio sounds great. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. This is the second portion of this debate. The candidates will now ask a question to an opponent of their choice. Candidates will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. And we are going to, we will have you'll have to raise your hand if you want to use your rebuttal, because that's the best way we can see you. So by completely random selection, this was done by the Atlanta Press Club before this debate started. Ethan Underwood, you may ask your first question to any opponent of your choice.
Sure, I'll ask my question to Representative Tanner. Kevin, we already know that Matt Gertler has refused to endorse Doug Collins for his Senate race, and I'm interested, are you going to be voting for Representative Doug Collins or Senator Kelly Loeffler in the Senate race in November?
Well, I appreciate that question. You know, I have been friends with Congressman Collins for many years. He served in the Georgia House prior to running for Congress, and I have supported Congressman Collins every time he's ran. I continue to support him today. He knows that he has my vote, my support, and my full endorsement in this race, and I'm looking forward to being able to serve with him when I'm in Congress and he's in the United States Senate. I fully support Congressman Collins for this seat.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to finally hear that. We're glad to have you on the team.
Okay, Michael Bogus, it is your turn to ask a question to one of your opponents.
Yeah, okay, I'll ask Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, why did you disappear for 12 years and then come back for what could potentially be an easy seat?
Well, first thing, I didn't disappear for 10 years. I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2014. I served in the U.S. House of Representatives from 2007 to January of 15. I went back to practice in medicine. I'm a U.S. Marine. I believe in liberty and freedom. I believe in very limited government. That's what I fought for when I was in Congress. There are 4 questions I utilized in evaluating legislation. The first one, is it constitutional for the original intent? The second one is it right or moral? The third, do we need it? And fourth, can we afford it? I've used those 4 questions. All 4 had to be yes for me to vote yes. And I believe in liberty. I believe in freedom. And we're losing it. Both political parties are guilty of creating this government that's just totally out of control and a debt that's unsustainable. And I'm eager to go back to Washington and fight, just like I went back to Afghanistan to fight in 2012 as a Navy medical officer.
Bogus, you have a rebuttal?
No, I'm good at this time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Andrew Clyde, it is your turn to ask a question of a candidate of your choice.
Thank you. I would like to ask fellow gun shop owner Kelly Weeks. I'm sure that during this Chinese coronavirus pandemic, your customers have experienced delays in the background check system, as ours have, far beyond the 3 days allowed for in federal law. So it's apparent that the FBI and the Department of Justice are ignoring the law and thereby denying their citizens of their Second Amendment rights for sometimes over a month. If you were elected to represent the 9th District, how would you address this issue and restore our citizens' Second Amendment rights?
Well, I would definitely make sure that didn't happen again. And we did have a lot. It was for a full week. We had people being delayed, not for 3 days, but for 25 to 28 days. And that was far exceeding what they are supposed to have. Plus, a background check is only good for 30 days. So if they didn't get in the day that it actually ended, then they were screwed. They had to go on and do another background check. So I would definitely put that in place, that you cannot do that again. That's some bad policy right there.
Andrew Clyde, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Kelly. I would certainly work to get rid of the Brady background check system, as it effectively declares citizens guilty until the background check proves them innocent, thereby denying them their gun rights. You know, it turns a constitutional right into a privilege granted by a corrupt department of the government. And that is an infringement on our gun rights. And so is the hidden 11% excise tax on firearms that all citizens have had to pay since the Revenue Act of 1918. If you have a constitutional right that can be taxed, it can be taxed out of existence.
True.
All right, perfect time. Thank you so much. Paul Brown, it is your turn.
Thank you, ma'am. In November, it's critical that we re-elect Donald Trump, elect 2 U.S. senators from Georgia, and help win back the U.S. House into Republican control by winning Districts 6 and 7. Will you commit right now to stay active, win or lose, by actively supporting our Republican nominees and ensure a huge Republican vote in November? Yes or no, all candidates? Answer.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, I'll
Yes, sir.
support
Absolutely.
candidates. Sure will.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I am unable to see if everybody has answered.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. Let's raise hands. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody wants to answer yes, please raise your hand. This is democracy in the time of coronavirus. Okay.
I want my 30 seconds.
Paul Brown, would you like your 30 seconds?
Absolutely. It is absolutely critical that we have a huge vote here in Georgia. In Congressional District 6 and 7, we're going to have a very competitive race. So I am counting on every single one of y'all to be actively engaged, like I will be, to make sure we win those 2 U.S. House races as well as our U.S. Senate races and re-elect Donald Trump with a huge victory here in Georgia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Matt Gertler, you may now ask your question to a candidate of your choice.
Thank you so much. This question is directed to Representative Kevin Tanner. Why should conservative voters, based on your record, expect you to do anything different than the House if you're elected to Congress, like supporting omnibus budget bills and also supporting the largest tax increase in Georgia history?
This is for Representative Tanner, I believe.
That's correct.
Representative Tanner, did you hear the question?
I did.
Okay, great. You have go ahead.
I appreciate that question, and I know you're referring to House Bill 170, and I appreciate the fact that it's hard to wrap your head around actually accomplishing something in elected office. First, this is an issue of states' rights. I know some anarchists do not believe there is any role for government, but transportation and infrastructure is a responsibility laid out as mandated function of state government in our state constitution. It's not a federal responsibility. House Bill 170 helps the state of Georgia fulfill its constitutional mandate. More importantly, investment in transportation and infrastructure has been a priority of President Donald Trump since he took office. That's why he has praised Georgia on multiple occasions for our efforts and has even had leaders from Georgia at the White House to discuss our reforms and success. Finally, this is not more government spending, it's an investment. The University of Georgia study showed there is a almost 2 times return on investment for every dollar spent. I am proud to be a conservative that actually is effective in delivering for our people.
30
rebuttal?
seconds rebuttal, Gertler.
Thank you so much. I understand what you're saying, but the voters actually rejected this, 75% of them on the ballot. So they did not want this tax increase that went through your committee, as well as House Bill 4, and you supported all the budgets in your time at the state capitol. I have not. They're omnibus-style budget bills. They add about $1 to $1.5 billion to the taxpayer. How can you call yourself a conservative and support omnibus-style budget bills, and why haven't you signed on to House Bill 4 that breaks the department budgets down by department, which is more common sense and has bipartisan support It's the only thing we're constitutionally required to do as legislators to pass a budget.
Okay, time. Thank you so much. Kevin Tanner, it is now your turn to ask a question to the candidate of your choice.
Well, I appreciate that. This question goes to Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, you left Congress under a cloud of ethics investigation over the misuse of taxpayer dollars to benefit your campaign. Ultimately, your former chief of staff was found guilty on 5 counts, including obstructing a congressional probe. In this very debate in 2016, when you were trying to defeat President Trump's #1 defender, Doug Collins, you said that it was absolutely not unreasonable to hold you accountable for your staff's actions. Do you still agree with your statement that you should be held accountable for your office's unethical and illegal behavior during your time in Washington?
Well, this is a typical attack upon my credibility and character, and this should be totally rejected by voters. Any candidate who would use this kind of attack and smear tactic. But the reality is, I voted against John Boehner to be Speaker, and then an anonymous complaint, and it may be because of that, not accepting Boehner as Speaker, that this ethics complaint was filed against me. Well, it was thoroughly investigated. They found no wrongdoing on my part. I have been totally cleared, and the statute of limitation has already expired. I did nothing wrong. My chief of staff got a Michael Flynn type of charge against him, and he's trying to clear his name, and I hope and pray that he does. I'll tell you what, this ethics witch hunt, this ethics being used to be weaponized against political opponents as well as innocent citizens is absolutely intolerable, and it must stop.
30 seconds for a rebuttal, Representative Tanner.
As someone that's enforced the law on front lines of law enforcement, I believe that we should hold you accountable. The bottom line in this race is about sending a proven conservative to Congress, continue the strong legacy of strong and honorable and effective leadership we've had in this district. A law enforcement agency, a county government are serving in the state. I have served with integrity, delivered results, and made Congress proud, or made the people proud, and I'll do that again in Congress. And again, just remember, this is using taxpayer dollars to fund a congressional race. We're talking.
Ma'am, can I make another comment?
Unfortunately, your rebuttal, that was the round, unfortunately. We're going to now go to Kelly Weeks, who can ask a question to a candidate of her choice.
This is to all of them. Career politicians are the downfall of our country, and most of our problems come from politicians who create the problem and are still there when it needs to be fixed. Our founding fathers made this a 2-year term for a reason, and they wanted a constant influx of new ideas. They did not want any person to accumulate too much power. So this is why I support term limits. By a show of hands, how many here will commit to a self-imposed limit of 4 terms?
4 terms? No.
I actually signed a statement that I'm going to be supporting term limits for less than that. So you're exactly right, Kelly. We don't need to make this a career. No one needs to make it a career. We need to be out getting citizens participating in their government. And then when it's time to go home, they need to go home.
Oh.
I agree 100%. I've also signed the term limits pledge. We do not need more career politicians in Washington.
I totally support term limits.
Okay, Paul Brown, you've raised your hand.
Right, absolutely. Term limits is not the problem. The problem is unlimited government, not unlimited terms. We need to go back to constitutional limited government as our founding fathers meant for it to be. If we have somebody in office that believes in big government and there's no constraint on the federal government, and then they leave and we elect somebody that has the same philosophy, we've not gotten anywhere. We've got to reduce the size and scope of government. And Kevin Tanner ought to be ashamed of himself for that charge against me, which has been totally debunked.
Time. Thank you all. I'm going to do
I'd like to respond.
Unfortunately, I have to go plug in my laptop. This is very, very embarrassing. Excuse me.
I'll now host the show. I'll start with
I soccer giver.
I'm mortified. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by.
At least it's you.
Okay, I'm being coached by the control room. John Wilkinson, you can now ask a question to the candidate of your choice.
Thank you. My question is for Kelly Weeks. Kelly, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You bring a unique perspective to our debate this afternoon as a mother and who has children. I was just wondering, during this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, how has it impacted you as a mother, your relationship with your children, and how do you see it affecting the big picture with our families?
Well, with me, I have still been working through the whole thing. I own a gun store. We have been open. We've put some protocols in place and limited the amount of people that can come in. As a mother, I have 2 children in college. They actually live in an apartment together, so they didn't. They're doing their college work from home now. So I'm in a better situation than most, since my kids are older and not small. I think people with small children are having a difficult time because they're having to work from home and juggle taking care of their kids at the same time since they're at home. But I've been fine with it.
Thank you.
Considering
30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I just think sometimes maybe we lose sight of the big picture. I think 2 groups of people that are really appreciated a lot more now than they were at the beginning of the pandemic are our farmers who produce our food and our teachers who teach our children. I think a lot of parents have gained a lot more respect for the job that our teachers do every day. And as a person with 2 grown children and 5 grandchildren, this has really been driven home to me.
Thank you all so much for that adventurous round 2. And now that I'm all plugged up, my laptop is getting some juice. We are ready for our final round. For those who are just joining us, this is the debate between the Republican candidates for Congressional District 9. Dave Williams and I will now continue to question the candidates until we run out of time, before the candidates will be giving their 60-second closing statements. I will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. Candidates may raise their hand if they feel they should get a rebuttal, so get your hands ready if you all want to talk. Dave, I will give you the first question for this round while I still get my computer settled. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. This is another transportation-related question for Representative Tanner. A bill you're sponsoring in the House aimed at improving public transit in rural Georgia has run into a roadblock in the Senate. Do you believe the bill can be saved when lawmakers get back to under the Gold Dome? And why is that bill important?
Well, I appreciate that. We spend a whole lot of time in Atlanta talking about transportation around the metro Atlanta area, but so much of the 9th Congressional District is rural. They have very unique problems associated with that. As we travel the state looking at transit within rural Georgia, what we found is a very inefficient system. We have 3 separate state agencies that are all trying to handle transit throughout Georgia. Duplication of services. In a meeting, we had the heads of those agencies that ran the transit division actually admit they had never talked to each other before. So House Bill 511 is an attempt to consolidate that into one agency to be able to save money and become more efficient at that operation. And whether that bill can get through this session or not, I'm not sure that it's going to be one of the top priorities. We are going to have about a $4 billion hole in the budget that we're going to have to work. It's going to affect real lives of every Georgian. We're looking forward to getting back and getting that done. So we'll see what happens with the transit bill.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will now ask a question to Representative Gertler. As we referenced earlier in this debate, you are apparently proud of your nickname as Mr. No, Dr. No in the House of Representatives here in Georgia. Do you agree with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who suggests that states should declare bankruptcy if they can't make it through this economic crisis because of coronavirus?
You know, when you look, and thanks for the question, you know, when you look at what's happening with our economy, with the health issues of the coronavirus and what the proper role of government is, you know, we have a 10th Amendment that leaves that up to the states. These stimulus bills that we've seen come through, and when you look at the bills, much like I look at the legislation on the state level, A lot of the bill had nothing to do with the coronavirus. About 75% of it had nothing to do with that. It's a trying time for our country, especially with what's going on in the pandemic. And we always need to be looking at those three types of things so that government outreach doesn't become too big. Also, you have to worry about, the economic aspects of this. I think Georgia is going back to work now, and then other states are following suit. And also just the health crisis of individuals. So, looking at, what Mitch McConnell's doing, I would have to see what he exactly said. I wasn't aware of that, but we'll see what happens in the near future. I know there's more bills going to be coming out here pretty soon. That's what I've heard, though.
Thank you very much. Dave, you can ask a question.
Okay, while we're talking about the economic impacts of coronavirus, I'd like to ask a two-part question and have all the candidates weigh in on this. Are the economic stimulus packages Congress has passed so far to help offset the impacts of COVID-19, are they striking the right balance between businesses, workers, hospitals, and state and local governments? That's number one. And secondly, would you support additional stimulus bills in Congress?
Who do you start with?
Let's go in alphabetical order.
Okay.
And I believe that would be Paul Brown to begin with.
Actually,
No,
Mr.
that's,
Bogus.
excuse me. Let's go in alphabetical order. Dave, thank you for the question. We're going to go around. I'm going to read everybody off in alphabetical order. Michael Bogus, you're first.
I don't believe that anything that they wrote out was helpful at all. I mean, you got $350 million for illegal immigrants. That's nothing to do with COVID. So I don't trust them to do a future stimulus to help the people because they're helping their vote. That's all they care about. Money, power, and voters. That's all they care about. That's both sides, right and left.
Thank you. Paul Brown, you're next.
Well, the best stimulus for the American worker is a thriving economy. And there's no amount of government stimulus that can make up for a good paying job. We've got to get the economy going. We've got to put people back to work. We've got to save businesses. And the more we continue this shelter in place or limited economy, the worse off the American workers are going to be. We've got to get the economy going now, and let's go back to work today.
Thank you. Andrew Clyde, you're next.
Thank you. I think the right balance was not struck by the Congress. I believe that there was way too much pork in those bills that should not have been in there whatsoever. I think that there was plenty of money to redistribute within those bills. So additional bills I do not think are necessary. We do need to get back to work. I fully support Governor Kemp in his opening up of the economy. That's the important thing. We need to get back to work, and stimulus has been proven, not to be the answer. The federal government stimulus is not the answer. It's getting our economy going again. President Trump did a great job of building an economy, and he's going to do a great job of leading us back too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Matt Gertler, you're next.
Thank you so much. As I mentioned before, if you look at the bills, the stimulus bill, it had all this pork in there that was going to help Pelosi and the crazy Democrats. And we really need a fighter that's going to stand with our president in this time of crisis and really stand up for the American worker and getting back to work while all the time having concerns about the health and what the proper role of government is. During this crisis, we saw a lot of red tape being lifted so that businesses could operate. And so we have to really look at that in a way where we can say, hey, do we need to put it back as well? Because, the government just grows and grows and grows. It's a natural proclivity of government to grow unless you have fighters who are willing to vote no and also be able to stand up against the establishment and say, this is the proper role of government, protecting life, liberty, and property. And that's about it. And so it's been a really trying time for our country. We're looking forward to get back to work. But those types of stimulus bills, as I see all the time on the state capitol, they go through like this, and everybody just votes yes. And it's this continuation of the status quo. We don't need that in Washington, D.C. We need fighters when to stand up what's right every time and have that consistency. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kevin Tanner, you're next.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I stand and support President Trump. He's done a great job. But the problem is, like so many things Congress does, the bureaucrats then undermine the system. They continue to attempt to undermine President Trump and what he's trying to accomplish. And there's a ton of waste in this budget. I'll give you a prime example. I received a call this week from a teacher who is at home getting paid, but she works part-time at a retail facility. Last year made less than $300 all year long. She has been turned in for unemployment by that retail center, and she's receiving over $300 a week from that unemployment. Over $3,000 so far. She says, Kevin, I do not want that money. I don't deserve the money. I don't need the money. I have a full-time job. We're going to hear so many stories of waste, and that's the story of Congress, and that's the story of our federal government. We have to get that under control, and President Trump needs people with him that understands how the system works and can rein that in.
Thank you so much. Ethan Underwood, you're next.
Sure. I think the CARES Act was necessary. It was necessary as a Band-Aid. It was never designed to keep people in a state of unemployment, and it was a very temporary measure, and it needs to be a temporary measure. Now's the time to get people back to work. We cannot stay in this situation. At some point, the cure becomes worse than the disease, and we've got to get people moving and the economy moving again. But the initial bill, it had a lot of pork in it, but the president supported it and said, we've got to get it to our workers, and I think it kept people from losing their homes. Now we've got to look at how do we move forward. We need folks that understand the proper role of government. They also understand how to get things done. Now, Representative Gertler keeps saying he votes no, but voting no does not mean you're most conservative. It means you can't build a consensus and get people to join your team. We need people up there who can get things done, who understand the system, who will fight with the Democrats, but also get a relief bill and get stimulus bills to get our healthcare system going again, get our economy going again.
I like a rebuttal.
You can have 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. Well, voting yes certainly doesn't help reduce the size of government. I can tell you that. Over the years, by voting no, based on limited government conservative principles, protecting life, liberty, and property, and have that high standard. I've never voted for a tax increase. I have the most conservative voting record in the state from the Georgia Republican Assembly, the largest grassroots organization in the state. The AJC has also cited this. So this is just a fact, and you need fighters that are going to
anybody can quote that
and go on and bring that fight to Washington, D.C. These are the largest grassroots organization in the state, has named me the most conservative legislator for 4 years straight. So it's just a fact. And so if you need somebody to go up there and do something and have a proven record to do that, and also we founded the Freedom Caucus.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's have Kelly Weeks go on and answer Dave Williams' question.
I almost forgot what the question was.
Do you need Dave to
I can do that.
No, I think I got it. I guess the biggest problem, the PPP that they put out there, that only covers payroll, and it really didn't cover anything else for businesses. It didn't help them with all the other bills, so they were still paying their employees, but those employees would have gotten unemployment if they had just gone on that, and some of them probably would have made more money doing that. Giving them money for just to pay employees to keep them on board doesn't keep a business open. Businesses they need the constant influx of money to stay open and stay prosperous. I think now we're in a new problem, and businesses have been closed for over a month, and 30 million people are unemployed, and some businesses probably will never reopen because of this. I've been in that situation before. We lost a business years ago due to bad policies, and nobody was there to help us. We had to do it on our own. Now, this time, I think the government needs to be there and do a little bit more, but they need to not put so much pork in it. We have got way too much stuff going here and there and everywhere that has nothing to do with businesses or helping out unemployed people.
Thank you so much, Kelly Weeks. And finally, we have John Wilkinson for your answer to Dave Williams' question.
I support President Trump, and I think he's done a great job. Obviously, before the pandemic with our economy, we had a very booming economy, and I support his efforts through the CARES Act. Undoubtedly, there was too much pork in it, too much that didn't have to do with the pandemic. For instance, I really feel like we need to give people an incentive to work. And there were aspects of the bill where unemployment benefits for people who are already drawing unemployment were given an additional $600 a week in addition to their unemployment benefits. Now, in the 9th Congressional District, you add the $600 to the unemployment benefits, and that doesn't incentivize people going out and looking for a job. So I think there's got to be a balance there, obviously.
Thank you so much. I am unable to hear our control room. Can you say something to me, control room? I can hear you now. How much more time do we have before closing statements? 2 minutes. Okay, great. Dave Williams, do you have another question?
Well, let me look. I think we can't do one with everybody to answer. We'll run
We
out of
can't, and I had a great one for the round robin, but it's going to take too long. So if you have a last one, that would be great.
Kind of a biographical question for one of the candidates. Ethan Underwood, you spent much of your career as a lawyer on property rights cases. Has that experience influenced your decision to run for Congress, and how?
Absolutely, because it's given me a healthy dislike of government control. I've seen in land use issues, in tax appeal issues, in condemnation issues, where government officials will just say, no, sue me. They don't want to go through the process. They don't want to respect people's rights. And in fact, now we're struggling with something you'll be seeing fairly soon, a sovereign immunity bill. We've run into now a situation where the courts have said, well, these local governments can make whatever decision they want to, and you can't even sue them. And then when you say, but you get around sovereign immunity, they say, well, we have official immunity. The people have to be able to challenge the decisions of their elected officials. We need to button up that hole in Georgia, but it's influenced my decision in that I want to go and take that skill set of fighting government and pushing back against the government to fight against the Democrats in Washington.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up our second round, I should say our third round, and now we'll go to closing statements. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Andrew Clyde, you get the first closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to Georgia Public Broadcasting for hosting this digital forum. My name is Andrew Clyde. I'm an evangelical Christian, a 28-year combat-tested veteran, a gun store small business owner, and the only candidate in this election endorsed by Georgia's lone Freedom Caucus member, Congressman Jody Hice. I'm running to be your next congressman because I believe we need people in Washington who will protect our innocent unborn, defend our gun rights, build the wall, proudly stand up for our president, and end overreaching unconstitutional government. I defeated the corrupt IRS bureaucrats in the courtroom and through the legislature, and this experience showed me there's a very thin line between we the people running our government and our government running us. This is the fight of our lifetime, and I have personally experienced the brutality of it, so I will down. I'm Andrew Clyde. Please go to ClydeForCongress.com to learn more about me and see my Fox News interview. I ask for your prayers and I ask for your vote. Please vote Andrew Clyde for Congress. Soli Deo Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kevin Tanner, please give your closing statement.
Thanks again for taking the time to tune in today. Like in any election, it's no surprise there's been a lot of talk and a lot of hot air by some. But talking may get you a spot on the cable news channel, but it doesn't get the job done. It's the huge challenges we face in our nation and the threats to freedom and values. We have too much at stake to rely on those who do nothing but talk. There's too much of that in Congress now. I haven't spent my lifetime dreaming of running for Congress. I'm not running to seek cable news fame. I'm running because Washington is broken, and we need an effective conservative fighter that can actually get the job done for this district. Having started and ran numerous small businesses, led a law enforcement agency, managed a county government, and delivered in the state house, I know how to lead. And I'm ready to use that experience to join President Trump to fix the mess in Washington and deliver for you. That's why Governor Nathan Deal has endorsed me, and that's why my endorsements come from people in your sheriffs and others in this congressional district, not from outside the district or the state. I'd be honored to have your vote and ask for your prayers. God bless each one of you.
Thank you so much. Ethan Underwood, you're next for your closing statement.
Sure. I'll close by asking a question. Do you know who we're up against in D.C.? We are up against an entrenched bureaucracy and politicians who will do anything they can to preserve their power. So who we send to Washington matters. We can't send someone who's just another Washington and government bureaucrat. We can't send someone who's going to get eaten alive by the DC machine, and we certainly can't send somebody who's just going to vote no all the time and throw our vote away. We need a conservative fighter who has a proven record of fighting government. I'm an attorney who represents businesses and people when they go up against the government, and I'm pretty darn good at it. I want to take that skill set to DC and work for you. I understand the law. I'm good at navigating the government systems. I won't back down until we get results. Please go visit voteethanunderwood.com and join our team.
Thank you so much, Ethan Underwood. And now, next, it's Michael Bogus. Your turn for a 60-second closing statement.
Hey, yes, everybody go to bogusforcongress.com or check me out on Facebook. At least this lovely lady is saying my name right, unlike the other guy. I appreciate that. I'm coming to you as a patriot, not a politician. I don't talk like them. I don't dress like them. I don't walk like them. If I was going to do all that shit, I might as well vote for them. They don't have it for you. Send somebody up there. If you think Trey Gowdy gives them hell, wait till I get there. So go to bogusforcongress.com, vote for Michael Bogus. That way I can go up there and tell AC where she can stick it.
Thank you, Michael Bogus. Next, we go to John Wilkinson for your closing statement.
Thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Dave, Georgia Public Broadcasting, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in this afternoon. I am John Wilkinson. I am a pro-life, pro-gun, pro-Trump Republican who has been appointed to the President Trump's Agriculture and Rural America Advisory Committee and have served with him in that capacity. I feel like I have a unique skill set that I could bring to this job. I grew up in Stevens County, attended the public schools here, and I graduated from the University of Georgia with degrees in agriculture and education, started my teaching career in Hall County, had my first full-time job in Forsyth County. My mother grew up in Jackson County. My dad was a longtime school administrator in Habersham County. For 26 years, I had statewide responsibilities in agriculture and education, and I just feel like that I know this district. I've worked in every school system and with all the farmers in this district, and I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. Matt Gertler, it's your turn for a 60-second closing statement.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm 31 years old, and I'm running for Congress, and because I have a proven record, I learned the value of hard work. I'm from my father. We build homes up here in North Georgia, but it's all about leading by example. That's what I've done as a state representative. I led by example. If we're going to act like Republicans, we better vote that way. I have never voted for a tax increase ever. I never will. We need true conservative fighters in D.C. willing to take the hard stands and while all acknowledging the political cost. You know, I'm attacked more than any other legislator, much like our president, and because I stand on principle. We have to bring principles back into politics. That's our message. And be able to take those hard stands, have a high standard when it comes to the voting, never voting for tax increases, and putting conservative values and principles first and foremost. This is the most conservative district in Georgia, the third most conservative district in the United States. And I'm the most conservative candidate in this race. I hope to earn your vote on June 9th. Please vote Matt Gertler. Visit my website, mattgertler.com. And I'll see you on the campaign trail. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Kelly Weeks, please give your closing statement.
Thank you. When you vote, you have a choice. You can either get the same career politicians who are bought and paid for by the political elite, or you can choose me, a true outsider. I chose to run to help the people of the 9th District. I'm concerned with the debt and the loss of freedom our children are facing. I have built a small business here in Gainesville, Georgia, and we are known for being fair and honest with everybody. I believe it's time for a fresh perspective that we don't currently have here in Georgia. I am pro-God, I am pro-gun, and I'm pro-America. My name is Kelly Weeks, and I am asking for your vote on June 9th. I almost said November.
And finally, we have Paul Brown. You get the final closing statement, 60 seconds.
Voters, you have a very unique opportunity to have a congressman whom you'll never have any doubts. You'll know where I'm going because you can see where I've been. I'm a doctor, a Marine, a battle-proven statesman in Congress. My opponents offer rhetoric, I offer results. They give promises, I give proof. Madison Project said, quote, many elected Republicans lay claim to a conservative voting record, and many Republican candidates promise to deliver the world to conservative primary voters. Yet few come to the ankles of Paul Brown in terms of a proven commitment to constitutional governance. It is not an exaggeration to say that Congressman Paul Brown has sustained the most conservative voting record over the longest period of time of any sitting Republican in Congress. Even the fiercest conservative fighters tend to succumb to the establishment meat grinder after a few years. Paul Brown has been inviolable. I'm asking you for your vote and your prayers. Vote Paul Brown.
Time. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all of the candidates for bearing with us with this very creative way to practice democracy and have a debate. This is the conclusion of our debate. We would like to remind voters Election Day is Tuesday, June 9th. Early voting begins May 18th. Thank you to the candidates for participating in this debate. Thank you for all of your patience. And I would like to give a special thanks to Dave Williams for assisting me today. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
This hopefully will be the last digital debate that we have to do. Hopefully we'll all be able to shake hands and see each other in the very near future. I would like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of primary election debates, please visit atlantapressclub.com. rather.org. The debate will be archived there and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website, gpb.org. I'm Ricky Bevington. Thank you so much for joining us for this Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bevington and Mr. Williams.